In 1991, Nancy Pelosi visited the Tiananmen Square. She held up a banner honoring the protesters who had died. China called her full of lies and disinformation. So clearly, there is no love lost between the two. And another visit by the US House Speaker could soon escalate tensions. Nancy Pelosi has kicked off a high-profile Asia tour. The tour begins in Singapore and includes a visit to Malaysia, South Korea and Japan. But this is not the focus of the tour. The biggest question is, will she visit Taiwan? In April, the US House Speaker was scheduled to visit Taiwan, a trip that created a lot of buzz. But then the US House Speaker got COVID-19 and the trip was cancelled. And now the buzz is back. At first, reports suggested Pelosi would visit Taiwan. China warned America, saying it would be playing with fire. Even the US president thought it would not be such a good idea. A visit to Taipei was not even mentioned in the itinerary. But now reports say that she is, in fact, heading to Taiwan. According to Taiwanese broadcaster TVBS, Pelosi will arrive in Taipei on Tuesday night. And this is the first for any US House Speaker in the last 25 years. The last US House Speaker to visit Taiwan was Newt Gingrich. That was in 1997. Then Beijing grumbled but swallowed its irritation. It had other priorities back then. President Jiang Zemin's government wanted to lock in Beijing's emergence from diplomatic isolation, so it avoided a disruptive clash with Washington. But 25 years later, Beijing is heavily armed and far less willing to compromise over Taiwan. Currently, no one knows what is on Pelosi's itinerary, but it looks like a meeting with President Tsai Ing-wen is on the cards. So why does Pelosi want to visit Taiwan? Firstly, there is strong bipartisan support in the US Congress for Taiwan. Secondly, Nancy Pelosi has been a vocal critic of China, so that's significant. And thirdly, with the US House Speaker rumored to retire soon, this could be her last public trip before she retires. So what does the United States think about this? From the start, there have been a lot of mixed signals. Biden previously said that Washington will intervene to support Taiwan, especially in the face of a Chinese invasion. The American president has said this not once or twice, but as many as 3 times in the last 1 year. But the White House has soon made him roll back his remarks, adding that there is no change in US policy. So when the news of Nancy Pelosi's visit emerged, Biden said it was not a good idea. Why? Because the Pentagon thought so. And this sort of mixed signaling has been dangerous. For Beijing, it is a sign of weakness. For Taiwan, it is sheer confusion. And for the United States, it is the lack of a clear policy in the Indo-Pacific. But even with ambiguity surrounding the visit, Washington is clearly gearing up for it. The US is moving aircraft and planes towards Taiwan to create a sort of a diplomatic buffer zone. Aircraft carrier USS Ronald Reagan has returned to the South China Sea. Other aircraft carriers are taking part in the Rim of the Pacific exercise. No matter what the administration thinks, they are still responsible for Nancy Pelosi's security. She is, in fact, in the presidential line of succession. And this brings us to China. What does this visit mean for Beijing? Earlier today, 4 Chinese fighter jets entered Taiwan's air defense identification zone. Taiwan claims to be a sovereign nation, but Beijing views it as a part of its territory. China says it will not sit idly if Nancy Pelosi visits Taiwan. These threats of retaliation have raised concern over China's possible response.
习近平强调，中国共产
我们要再次正告美方，
We would like to tell the United States once again that China is standing by and the Chinese People's Liberation Army will never sit idly by, and that China will take resolute responses and strong countermeasures to defend its sovereignty and territorial integrity. What the US should do is to abide by the One China principle and the provisions of the 3 Sino-US joint communiques, honor President Biden's pledge, and not to support Taiwan independence and not to arrange Pelosi's visit to Taiwan.
兑现拜登总统不支持台独的承诺，不得安排。
And with me live from Washington, D.C. is Lisa Curtis. She is a senior fellow and director of the Indo-Pacific Security Program at the Center for a New American Society. Lisa, thanks very much for being here with us. What do you make of the Biden administration's messaging when it comes to Taiwan and over the Nancy Pelosi visit now?
Well, look, I think that we have to remember that the U.S. has not changed its policy toward Taiwan. The U.S. has reiterated its support for the One China policy, does not support independence for Taiwan. Relations are governed by the Taiwan's Relations Act. So I think it's important to keep that in mind. But I think some of the problems here, because we have to admit that this visit is causing an escalation in tensions between the U.S. and China. And I think part of the problem here is, one, what's happening in China. China's faced a lot of economic problems because of the COVID lockdowns. They're getting ready to go into the Chinese Communist Party Congress. And that is where President Xi is hoping to secure a third term. So this is a time where he has to show strength in foreign relations. So we've got those constraints. And we also have the constraint that China does not understand really, I think, the U.S. system, and that we have the separation of powers, that the Congress is not the administration, that there is, the administration's policy, and what Congress does on its own is separate from that. So I think we do have some confusion over that issue coming from China. And all of this is complicating the situation. It is raising tensions. But I think that, we need to forge ahead. And China cannot, dictate what congressional members are going to do, the travel they're going to take. And so this is the situation that we're in. We don't know for sure she's going to visit. It looks that way. That's what we're hearing from the Taiwanese authorities. But I think that it's important to remember that U.S. policy toward Taiwan has not changed. And this is what everybody should be focusing on.
Oh, like you said, it does come at a time of rising tensions between the two sides. So how is Beijing expected to respond if this Nancy Pelosi visit to Taiwan does go ahead?
Well, I think we can expect that the relationship, there will be tensions within the relationship. I don't think they're going to escalate to any kind of military conflict, of course, but, we are likely to see escalated rhetoric. And things might, be a little tense for a while. And they already were tense. People are already concerned, given, Russia's invasion of Ukraine. How is China looking at that? It's raised concern, of course, in European circles that perhaps China is getting ready to do something against Taiwan. Maybe it will wait till after the party Congress. So we're looking at, a lot of tension probably next year as well. So this just adds to the overall tension in the relationship. But, I think President Biden did the right thing to have the phone call with President Xi to try to explain, the difference in the administration position with that of Congress. Congress has always supported Taiwan and wanted to be very vocal in its support for Taiwan. And so what you see on the Hill is both Republicans and Democrats being very supportive of Nancy Pelosi's, right to visit Taiwan. As you mentioned at the opening of your show, We don't know how much longer she'll be Speaker of the House. So, she probably on a personal level wants to show her support for the Taiwan people.
Lisa Curtis, appreciate very much joining us in the broadcast. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.